So welcome to everyone. We are here on the No Guru-ish platform. I am a guest of Anthony today, and he and I were talking about some really amazing people in our network that we thought would be great to highlight on this platform. Because here at No Guru-ish, we're always thinking about life in every aspect of it, our career, our family, what we're pursuing professionally, our passions, and recognizing that there is no arrival, right? It's a journey. We're constantly learning. Nobody is a guru about these things, even in our perfection as we perfect our crafts. And so the first person I thought about when we were talking about this was a personal friend of mine, Angelique Pierre, who is an incredible architect. She is a founder of her own company, and we really wanted to highlight that here, particularly because we recognize that there are not a ton of people in this space that look like you. And so we are going to talk about you today and BLKDR, if that is all right. And Angie, please tell the people about yourself, about what you do, about the business.
So I'll start by saying, hey, friend.
Hey, friend.
Thank you, and thank you to Ann for
Hey,
or Anthony, I should say, for having this platform and inviting me to speak on this platform. It's always great to have an opportunity to talk about what it is that I'm doing, to share my work, my story, because I know there aren't very many Black women architects out there, and probably fewer that have their own firms, definitely fewer that have their own firms. But what makes this extra special is that today we're doing this with family. And so Ashley and I, as you guys may hear me call her Ash, so we're using the affectionate term. It's a family episode, right?
It sure is.
So Ash and I go back to the third grade.
We do.
And she has been one of my biggest supporters throughout all of my phases of life. My first, both of our first introduction into business was with each other. So we've taken a lot of leaps and stepped out on faith on quite a few different adventures in life together. And so to be interviewed by her today is really special. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I knew I wanted to be an architect starting like high school, but really on a whim though. Actually my dad's cousin said to me, "You look like you can be an architect," which I always remark on the irony of that, because
what does an architect look like?
That question, but it certainly didn't look like a Black girl, because to this day, there are only maybe less than 2% of all.
No, I got it better.
Oh, you got the stats.
I got the stats. So in preparation, I was like, because we always say that, like, there aren't a lot of Black women architects. But I was like, what are the numbers? So I looked it up, and NPR actually had an article about this on npr.org in March this year or last year. And it literally stated there are less than 2% Black architects. And of that number, less than 0.5% were Black female architects. And I think it was around like 121,000 registered or licensed architects. And yeah, so you guys were in the 500s.
Yep.
Across the board. And so I thought that was incredible. And especially because my first introduction to the idea of architecture was actually through you in school. You know, being in class and you're sketching stuff and you're preparing your portfolio. I remember for Cooper Union, and I was like, well, what is an architect? I know my friend can draw. And there's
Nobody knows what you do.
right. And there are a lot of lines and numbers. And I mean, and that's my childhood interpretation of what you were doing. And I also, and I know I've said this to you 1,000 times throughout the years, you are the only human being that I know personally who, it seems, has always known what they were going to do. From we were children until now. You said this is what you were going to do. And despite all of the twists and turns of life, this is exactly what you're doing. And I think that's amazing, especially when you don't have a lot of, we say representation matters, representation in that space to give you the audacity to be like, oh, I belong here as well. And so, you're saying that first it was brought to you by a family member, what you look like you could do, and then how do you go from that idea like, oh, architecture to, hey, this is what I'm doing?
So I feel like this is what I was meant to do in a strange way, because I'm sure that not every school district has a school that has architecture vocational courses.
That part.
So, you know, he came to me with this idea and he said, you look like you could be an architect. I was immediately intrigued because I hadn't heard anything like it before. We're Caribbean, so you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer. And that's about it.
Right.
Those are your options. Or an accountant, potentially. Because we saw someone do that. My mom did that. So there's
my
a path
dad
for
did that.
You can venture into a couple of other things, but architecture, definitely not. I didn't understand what it was, but I was intrigued. And then shortly thereafter, in going to high school and having the option in the 10th grade to pick the vocational courses that I would be in for the next 2 years of high school, our options were architecture, automotive, and cosmetology.
Remember, they wouldn't let us take the automotive class? I could be fixing my own cars right now. And they would not let us take it.
They started those girls, no?
Must be nice.
Oh, yeah, things are
salty.
different now. There's women's football teams, girls football teams.
Look at God. Continue.
But so I picked architecture and I loved it. Our first assignment was to design an 8x8x8 volume and create, I forget what the design parameters were, but I loved it. I love the problem solving aspect of it. I love the creative aspect of it. It's not nearly as much math as everyone thinks, guys. It really isn't.
I hear the words that are coming out of your mouth. However,
architecture, I think first and foremost is creative thinking and creative problem solving. And so working through 2 years of architecture vocational courses and having two wonderful teachers that were invested in me and introduced me to the idea of the Cooper Union, because I hadn't heard of it, didn't know of an architect, and didn't know necessarily what the path forward looked like outside of picking a good university that architecture was, in which architecture was one of their top programs.
Right.
But Cooper Union is kind of one of those quite unsung heroes. At the time, it was entirely tuition free. That was big
selling point.
Yes. But outside from that, yes, I applied to schools like Cornell and, I believe, was it UPenn or Penn? I think it was UPenn and a couple of others. But when I got into the Cooper Union, knowing that it was a great school and that it was also free, it was decided.
Right.
I have a sibling. My sister's older than me. My parents would just pay for her school. They were okay. They didn't force me, but when
the math was math, the zero was the math was math.
They would have paid, but they were happy that I chose what I chose, and I had an awareness of them, and they had an awareness of me. But going to Cooper, the thing that stuck out to me the most about education was it was leaps and bounds from what I thought architecture was. We grew up in a pretty typical suburban, neighborhood where the architecture wasn't particularly good or interesting at all. But no offense, but
it is what it is.
But Cooper opened my world up to a lot more creative thinking of what architecture could be, how you could conceptualize, a space. There were even poetics, and I used to like to write. So it was so much more than just lines and problem solving. It was creative thinking. It was romance. It was poetry. It was, I can create my own manifesto. You know what I mean? There were all of these things. It was so much more about thinking and the way your mind worked and what are your values and how do you then put that into space. What does space mean? How do we experience space? How does the built environment shape how we experience it? And then that was what really got me hooked. That's when I thought that I was going to be an architect, And then when I went to Cooper after that first semester, despite how brutal it was,
That part.
I still knew that this is what I was going to do because it was leaps and bounds more interesting than I even thought it was.
Excellent. So then you mentioned how brutal that semester was, but even throughout your time from school to present, like there have been a lot of things that have happened, good, bad, indifferent, in between. So walk us through the journey. Like, okay, I've come to this school. They have shown me all the things that architecture can be and can do. And then how did that translate from then to you starting your own firm?
Yeah, a lot of steps between being a first year student in architecture at the Cooper Union to starting my own business. But the thing that I will say about architecture school, or just the field in general, when you go into architecture school, everyone has this idea that they're going to be a star architect, right? You're going to be this great designer that is going to, have your name spoken about. You're going to get these wonderful commissions. You are going to be the name on the door, and you're going to have a traditional career in architecture. You start a firm, people love you, they want you to design, whether it's their civic buildings, their homes, whatever type of architecture you're into, but people are going to come to you and you're going to be the face, right? What isn't promoted in architecture school is that in reality, it's a team effort, right? You're not always going to be the face. You might just be production. Or maybe you don't even like design and maybe you like the technical aspect. But I bring that up to say, I feel like architecture schools paint one path of what a career in architecture looks like that is very limited. And I thought I was going to be on that path.
Okay.
Right? I was going to graduate, I was going to find a good job at a good firm, and I was going to ride that out to partnership maybe at a certain point, and in some distant point in the future, I was going to start a firm. Right. So that was what I thought in architecture school. Then I graduated and I started to work and I thought, you know what? Maybe I do 5 years at a firm, learn what I need to learn, get my license, and then I'll go out on my own. Both of those were not what happened and couldn't be further from what I ended up wanting for myself. I graduated and I took a year to work on my portfolio. I graduated about 2 years after the big 2008 recession. So I graduated in 2010. I'm aging myself. Yeah, we are no longer spring chickens.
You're welcome.
But so it's not like there were jobs everywhere right away. Things were just starting to come back.
Right.
And so I spent about a year working in my mom's accounting office and on my portfolio.
I remember that.
Watching reruns of General Hospital on YouTube.
Did not know that part. Cool.
But yeah, thank you to Mom for providing a place for me to work. And she actually paid me a stipend. Mom took good care of me.
Oh, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, in addition to letting me live in her house rent-free and providing my meals. So shout out to Mom.
Okay.
But it took about a year for me to find a real serious job in architecture. And I started working for an Pearson architect who is still probably one of my biggest cheerleaders and my mentor to this day. We went on to work with each other for 12 years before I started my own firm. 12 years is 7 more than 5. Not 5 years. I set out to. But it's like, I started working and started to get a feel and couldn't have felt more insecure in the beginning of my career, not, knowing the ropes. Youngest person on the team, young Black woman on the team, also the only one of that. So it took a while for me to really get my legs and get confident. And I didn't even start thinking about taking my exams. Just for context for everyone, in order to become a registered architect in this country, you're required to take a series of exams.
5,000 exams.
Yes, at the time I graduated, it was 6. They since have started, I don't even know what version we're on now. It's like the version 4, version 5 of what they call the AREs, the Architects Registration Exams. And I think by the end, I got away with taking 5 exams to get my license.
Just got away with 5. Okay, continue.
And In addition to that, you are required to complete a certain amount of experience hours, which amounts to about 3 years of hours. So after a 5-year degree where you get your bachelor's of architecture, okay, check, I did that part. Now I have to spend 3 years of getting experience hours, and I have to take my 5 exams. But architecture school is no jokes. I was tired. I wasn't thinking about picking up a book for nobody's exams. I wanted a job. I wanted to make money. And like even when I started working, I was just so whipped about the whole thing. I didn't even start logging my hours right away. I was like, I'm working, it'll come. Wouldn't recommend that. If you'd like to be an architect, log your hours from the beginning. You're working, log your hours. But I say that to say I wasn't so much thinking about being on my own just yet.
Right.
Like I was just wanting to get my legs and I wanted to figure out how to be good at what I was doing. And maybe 2 or 3 years in that I start logging my hours, and then years past that I start taking my exams. But when I did, I buckled down and did them in about 2 years to get that done. And it wasn't until I finished my last exam that I really started to go, all right, now what do I want to do?
Right.
You know, what needs to change? What do I like about what I'm doing? What do I not like about what I'm doing? And what do I see for my career in the big picture, in the longer term? By this time, I'm about 8 to 10 years into my career, right. And I feel more confident in my abilities, in my abilities to lead projects, lead teams. And so that's when I started. That's when the seed of wanting my own firm kind of started.
But I think that's important to highlight because I think a lot of us, particularly even to the context that you gave about our upbringing, there are these expectations of the timeline and what it looks like, and the road should be the shortest distance between A and B.
Yeah.
And I think as your friend, observing all the ups and downs that you went through to get to even that point, I remember even to get you taking those exams, you know, like you did it, you were following your intuition, you were following your gut, and you knew when you were burnt out, right? And then you took the time that you needed. And when you got to the space, you're like, now I'm ready. Yeah. And then you pivoted and you buckled down and you did what needed to be done. And I think that's important because sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to do what we think it's supposed to look like. And that ends up being to our detriment in the long run, because now you're even more burnt out, or you've lost the passion of whatever it is, insert your it here, because you have given yourself these stringent timelines or expectations. And so I think that was really great, and I appreciate you sharing that. So tell us, now you've been at the firm, you've done your exams, you've had your hours, you are officially licensed, certified, signed, sealed, delivered, ready to go. What prompts you to take the leap of faith to start your own firm? And were there like mentors or resources along the way that helped you make that transition?
Yeah. I think I wouldn't be where I am right now without mentors and champions and people that really supported me every step of the way. But to talk about the inception of starting my own practice, I was still fully invested in an Pearson architect, but still like starting to feel those little twinges of discomfort. Something isn't fitting the same way it once was here. I need some sort of a change. And this was 2019-ish. Okay. So you see where this is going, right?
Oh no, not at all. Don't know what's going on around that time.
So I had planned a sabbatical. I was going to travel for 2 months.
Yes, I remember the sabbatical that never was.
Be fire, y'all. I was going to visit one of my old childhood friends. I was going to visit Felicia in Texas.
Okay.
Head across to Arizona, then schlep my way down to Chile to the Atacama Desert. Don't steal my trip, y'all. By all means, but have fun. Take a trip. I still haven't taken it.
The sabbatical that never was.
Yes. Then cut across to Morocco, spend some time there, and then take the ferry across to the south of Spain, trek my way over to Nice, and come back from Nice. That was the trip I had.
Oh, invite me. That sounds like a good trip.
I had 2 months. I had approved time off. I was ready to go. Along comes COVID. and that trip doesn't happen.
Right.
So get all of my money refunded, and I decided instead to hire a mid-career coach to help me sift through all the things that I was thinking about, my interests, old interests I'd long forgotten about. Girl, I dug up my thesis.
Hey.
I went back into the archive just to remember what things excited me in the first place. People don't realize it, but it's very easy if you're not intentional about it to lose sight of your passions. We get consumed in the work, the providing, sometimes just autopilot of showing up or just being good that day, whatever it is. And we lose sight of our passions or why we started. So working with a mid-career coach forced me to dig all of that up, whether it was fashion and interest in, doing something in Haiti, going back and solving infrastructure and sanitation problems in Haiti, all kinds of things, affordable housing, development. What things did I think not only would excite me from a career perspective, but what then career paths would allow me to have the quality of life that I wanted for myself. So it wasn't just career, it was, what do you want your ideal day to look like? What does your day look like now? What do you like about that? And what don't you like about that? What does your ideal life look like? Do you need to travel? And if so, for how many months out of the year? Or do you want a career that allows you to travel, or do you just want that on your leisure time? So we really thought about it holistically. It wasn't just what excites you in a work day. It's what do you want your week to look like, your month to look like, your years to look like moving forward? How do you build that life? And so she was great and helped me sort through it. And by the end of that exercise in summer of 2020, I realized that I wanted to be an architect developer and not just an architect. So I was feeling pretty helpless with architecture and feeling like, everything that I do is at the behest of my client, right? And while you can work with them, they still run the show. They own the value propositions of the project because they're footing the bill. And in addition to feeling that experience at work, I think looking out at the built environment and seeing who really holds the cards here, who decides what does and doesn't get built, and what communities that serves or doesn't serve, I really felt like I want to be on the ownership side of this thing.
Right.
And no, I'm not going to be Vornado, you know what I mean? And that's a huge developer in the city.
Thank you, because I know most people do not know what that is.
But
myself included.
I can do something that is more accessible for me and my peers at a smaller level or at a smaller scale. I can start there and who knows where it grows, right? So I decided I want to be an architect developer, and I started taking informational meetings with other people, peers, colleagues, mentors about what I was interested in doing, finding out more information. And I set a 2-year plan. I went to Angelique and I said, so Angelique, I'm going to be ready to leave at the end of 2022. So, you know how most people have their 2 weeks notice? I gave 2 years notice that I was going to be leaving. And there's probably a part of her in her mind that's like, let's just see. But sure enough, at the end of 2022, I officially left and went out on my own and, started BLKDR. I'd started taking on small projects on my own at the end of my time with Angelique, but there was a really big and important project to me that I wanted to finish out with her as well. So that's how I got there and how I decided to start BLKDR and the kind of principles that it was founded on. Mm-hmm. But as far as mentorship goes, definitely Angelique. With Angelique and another mentor of mine, Nancy Kleppel, we've co-founded something called Mentorship for Women in Architecture.
Excellent.
And it's an initiative that connects incoming practitioners with women in leadership roles in the industry. And the idea is really to show them a path to a long career in architecture so they don't get discouraged. A lot of young women don't stay in the profession because of low pay, long hours, lack of upward mobility, and also lack of mentorship. Mm. So providing that or filling that gap was something that was important to us. And so it's funny, I started a mentorship organization with my mentors. And then from then we've met so many other mentors that are helping our younger mentee community, but also me. And so I've met so many amazing women architects along the way that have supported, encouraged me, given me tips on how to grow the business. Oh, try this avenue. Oh, here's what I did when I started out. Oh, just give me a call. I can talk you through it. helping me with my business development, being part of my referral network to refer projects to me. And so, men and women alike have really been my mentors and champions along the way.
That's excellent. And now talk to us about the company. How did you get the name? And what do you hope that your company, your firm, brings to the architecture space that doesn't already exist?
Okay, so BLKDR is actually Black Door Architecture and Development without the vowels and without the C. So basically, it's an abstraction of BLK, of Black Door, but I love Black Door for a couple of reasons. So at a pure level, a lot of my work within in-person architect was traditional architecture, which I grew to appreciate because I was educated more in contemporary and modern architecture. But what I love about a Black Door is that it is bold and it is classic. It is timeless, right? And so that as an architectural feature, I love. And
Thank you.
I want Black, bold, and timeless. I would like those to be my three adjectives. Yeah,
Own
I like
those.
that.
Yes.
So that part, right, just from an architectural perspective, and then on a personal level, as a Black woman, feeling like I am kind of backdooring my way, blackdooring my way into this industry, and I've been in the industry for a while, but I mean into this pocket that I'm creating now for myself, having my own business, and not a traditional architecture firm, but on the architecture development side. I feel like I'm carving my own lane, which feels like a Black Door, kind of back door into what it is that I'm trying to do. So those are that's kind of the double meanings of Black Door for me, or slash BLKDR. So I don't lead with that all the time because I feel like, and this is something that we can talk about, I don't always lead with my Blackness. And I don't always feel like I can.
And that's that is a fair feeling to have,
yeah.
Particularly in your industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This Black, first generation American with locks that show up in a space where, you're on the fringes of the fringes, if that makes sense. So I can see why you would sometimes feel that way. But then on the flip side, you have just expressed that so much of what you want to do is centered around boldness, right? And approaching this space from that different perspective. Yeah. So there's a lot of, yin and yang or nuances to how you show up in that space and how you move in that space. How have you been able to navigate that so far?
Yeah. I've been lucky. I've been lucky in the sense that I don't know whether it's alignment and everyone's faith and their beliefs are different, but I have found alignment every step of the way in this. And it's a lot of what's kept me going because entrepreneurship is not necessarily natural to me. I'm a young Haitian girl. We were raised to go along with the grain. Our parents came here on the premise of security. Entrepreneurship is not that.
Right.
I was raised to go out and get a good job that would provide security for myself so that my parents could now rest and
they've done what they need to do, right?
And then so I watched my mother cringe every step of the way in that 2 years. Like, you sure you want to leave? And I had to not hold it against her, feeling like she didn't support me. I just understood that she wanted safety for me and she was afraid for me. So I get that. I say that to say the alignment that I've experienced along the way has helped to encourage me to move forward in a space that is insecure to start.
Right.
I've never been in this space before. Even in my first stint with entrepreneurship, we always had our jobs.
We sure did.
And the reality is, it's different when
this is not that safety net is gone. Right.
This is my bread and butter. I eat what I kill, and I have to give everything to this. I want to succeed. I want it to be here. I want my kids to watch me do this and to watch this grow and to know that this is possible. Because to me, that is the next level of what my parents came here for. Right. To me, that's a lot of what starting out on my own and continuing out on my own is about. My parents came here so that I could have security, and that's what they could envision. But the reality is, generation by generation, the vision grows, and it should, right? So I'm taking what they've provided for me to the next level. I want to make that count. I want to make that worth something, and that means something to me as well. So I'm sure I digress somewhere. But I'm saying how I've navigated, the space is a lot through alignment. So the people that I have surrounded myself with have pushed me forward. They'll speak well of me and put me in front of somebody else. I found that the more I spoke about what I wanted to do, the more there was someone there to say, hey, look, let me put you in touch with that person. I know the world will have you believe people don't want to help you. I'll keep it to yourself. That has not been my experience, and I think that'll be to your detriment. Put it out there.
Closed mouths don't get fed.
Exactly.
Right.
If it's strong enough, and if you're strong enough, then even if someone rejects you, even if someone tries to stand in your way, you're going to find another way.
Right.
As much as there may be someone that isn't willing to help you, there's someone that
will,
is.
right.
Talk about it. If you're thinking about doing something, claim it. Talk about it to whoever will listen. And I promise you, 5 people, at least one will be like, you know what, I know someone that you need to speak to, and get you in front of that person. So that's been a lot of how I've been able to move forward and navigate.
Right. So then what do you hope that your firm will bring to the space of architecture that you've not seen done already?
Yeah. So for me, I'm focused on, I've done high-end residential most of my career. And when I went out on my own, wanting to be an architect developer, I wanted to address 3 things. I wanted to address sustainability, which for those that may not fully understand all that is a lot of environmentally responsible design. That is making sure that your mechanical system isn't so wasteful that it's drawing so much electricity, it's putting a demand on an already strained and fossil fueled infrastructure, right? How can we be more efficient so that we can be less dependent on the fossil fuels that we understand to be corroding, our environment? So environmental sustainability, affordability, and access. And as part of environmental sustainability, historic preservation, and adaptive reuse. So for me, that means we live in New York City. I live in New York City. Well, you're originally from here, so you're still in New York, right?
Thanks.
But honestly, across the country, right, we have such a well-built building stock. Like, I have a love for anything that was built probably in late 1800s to the 1930s and 40s, right? 1950s things started going left. But things that were so well built, like crafted, these beautiful solid brick buildings. If I take you down a block here in Harlem, you'll find a historic church with beautiful masonry, beautiful artisan and craftsmanship that you won't necessarily see anymore. And if you do, it'll cost you an arm and a leg to get that done. So for me, being able to take those buildings, give them a second life, or possibly third after that, by just replacing their windows, adding some insulation where it's necessary, changing the roof, right? If it's possible to change the building's use, right? If it's, say, we have an old factory, right? We turn that into now a mixed-use building, commercial on the ground floor, residents above. Right now, you're addressing a housing issue. You've given an old building a new life, so you don't have to tear it down. So much of the building and construction's demand on our carbon infrastructure is new construction. If we can keep the buildings that we already have and just refresh them with new windows, everything that I've just said, now you've brought this building into the 21st century, and you can give it a whole other 100 years of life. It's built on solid infrastructure. The building has already stood damn near 100 years already, and it could stand another 100 with just a couple of, just a little more TLC. And so I hope I didn't get too technical. I think, being on the ownership side, so providing access to housing, taking these buildings and giving them a second life and a different use, providing access, managing sustainability, and preservation, because I love the details of these old buildings. I think that they're things that we should preserve as much as we can. So those are my things.
I also heard you mention affordability, because I know every time I hear somebody hired an architect, I be like, oh, you got money.
Yeah.
Because in our minds, you know, that level of care and attention to what you're about to do, whether it's to your home or in a business, like that costs money. And so a lot of times you don't often hear people like, yeah, I hired an architect, you know, to plan this out for me. I remember in chorus, I asked you to design my house. This is about several decades ago at this point in time. So I appreciate you working to make that a more affordable endeavor for me in the future. So well, one, thank you for sharing that. I think even in watching you light up as you talk about those things, it shows how passionate you are, but even what that can offer to not just your physical world around you, but to your social world around you as well. And I think that's incredibly important. And I'd ask, and this is not just to say, you know, for anybody listening, but particularly other Black, brown, young people, young women looking to enter that space, like what type of advice would you give them? What type of mistakes have you made in entrepreneurship that you would wish to, you know, if I could do it again, I would do this differently, or I would advise somebody to try this way, not this way. You know, just in general, what advice would you give? Please hold.
Okay. My eyes are watering.
Yeah. Sorry, friend. Go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The biggest piece of advice that I give, and I give this to mentees all the time, and I down to some random woman I met in the bar the other day. I tell everybody, she's 28 years old. Anyone that I meet that is earlier on in their career, I say invest in people, invest in relationships from the very beginning. I don't care how shy you are, how detail oriented you are. That's great. Be great at what you do, absolutely, but reserve time and energy to invest in people, to meet new people, to look up from your desk, look up from your work, and talk to someone. That person will teach you something. They will become an authentic connection that you do not know how it may come back and serve you 5-10 years, 1 year from now, but it's worth it. I know that so many of my opportunities, hell, all of my opportunities, if we're being honest, have come from people that have put me forth. People that have recognized, hey, she's great at what she does, probably a little on the shyer side, but she's awesome. And because I like her and I know her personally, and I know her in a way that others may not, I want to put her up for this opportunity. So I would absolutely say invest in relationships from the very beginning while you are getting great at your craft. Seek out mentors. If you see someone out there that is doing what it is that you want to be doing, find a way to get in contact with them. And don't be shy. LinkedIn message that person. Hi, I love what you're doing. Just a nod to say hello. Might you be open to, hell, at this point it's virtual, a virtual tea to discuss the possibility of mentorship. There are people that do
We're a
want to
tea
mentor.
drinking collective, in case you weren't. Go ahead.
But there are people that do really want to mentor. That's one of the things that we really noticed when we started mentorship for women in architecture. Overwhelmingly, people said yes. Like, people want to do this. So take advantage of it. So I would say definitely relationships, and seek out mentors and seek them out with intention. Yeah.
And where can people find you, your firm, information about you? How do people connect with you?
So my website is up. So that's blk-gr.com. So www. So my website is www.blk-gr.com. That will tell you a lot about what I do, what I'm interested in, what I can do for you. And my Instagram is blkdrand for architecture and development. And that's about it.
And if there was someone else that you think that we should talk to that also has been on a journey of any kind that would have a lot to offer, whether it's professionally, personally, somebody that you admire, who is somebody that you would recommend?
Oh, on the spot, like right here, right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first person that comes to mind that was actually a really big inspiration to me during the time that I was thinking about taking this leap and just has a unique and interesting career path is a friend of mine, Khalid Cooper. He's been in the fashion world for a long time. He does all kinds. He is like a businessman, entrepreneur to his core. And so much I'm clapping on camera. Forgive me.
Oh, Khalid.
But no, like, and you know, he's tied into whether that's from Maurice Malone, where he started, to, you know, he's parlayed his relationships into media, into into journalism. He dog walking. He does it all. Like he's that guy that everyone kind of goes to. He's the hub. So I think he's awesome. As far as other people in my industry go, I got to shout out one of my like sheroes, Elizabeth Graziolo, a Haitian woman architect that really just took off right at the heart of the pandemic. Finally went out on her own, and when she did, there's been no looking back. Her firm, while people were running for the hills and afraid that they wouldn't be able to that they wouldn't be able to stay into business, her business grew like tenfold during the pandemic.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And she's amazing. She's a charismatic woman that everyone is drawn to. And she's awesome. There are tons of others that I could think of, but those are the first two that come to mind.
And feel free to make those introductions. That's really it, unless there's anything that you want to leave the people with before we go. But it's been such a pleasure to have you here, and I thank you very humbly for when I pitched this not so crazy idea, because you are that girl, right? When I pitched this to you, you were open and willing, and I just want to say thank you. And thanks you. You know, I just feel like this is going to be such an addition to what we've been covering, the community that's been supporting us from the very beginning. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say, if I did have a parting note to the audience, is if you have any interest in architecture, engineering, construction, STEM, careers that may seem non-traditional for you as a minority, a Black woman, a woman, whatever minority group you identify with, don't let that intimidate you. You are capable, you can, you should seek out someone in that space that's doing it and reach out. And I hope this was helpful or inspiring to you in some way. Thank you for letting me share my story with you guys.
And thank you for being here.
All right, thanks, guys.
Clap it up for that.